The air inside the small auditorium in Seoul was heavy with expectation. As if every breath carried the weight of unanswered questions. Dozens of journalists leaned forward. Cameras flashing intermittently. Their pens hovering above notepads. Fans had waited months, some even years, to hear his voice not as an actor hiding behind scripted lines, but as Jung Hae himself, a man caught between love and the relentless glare of the public eye. And now, at last, he stood on the stage, gripping the microphone with a trembling hand, his eyes scanning the crowd as though searching for courage among their gazes. "I know people have been waiting for me to speak," he began, his voice low but steady, the kind of tone that makes every ear lean closer. "And today, I want to be honest, not as an actor, but as someone who has loved, struggled, and remained silent for too long." The room shifted instantly. Whispers rippling like a tide. Reporters straightened their backs. Fans clutched their banners. And the spotlight on him grew hotter. Not just in brightness but in meaning. This was the moment that had been speculated on across gossip columns, dissected endlessly online, and whispered about in the corners of fan cafes. This was Jung Hae's first public acknowledgement of Jung So-min. And it carried with it the tremors of both love and heartbreak. He paused, eyes lowered, before continuing. "She didn't deserve the weight she carried because of me." The words fell like stones into a silent pool, sending shockwaves across the hall. Those who adored him felt a pang in their chest. Because behind the image of their favorite actor was a man haunted by the toll his love had taken on someone else. From the very beginning, their relationship had been a subject of fascination and doubt. When rumors first surfaced, it wasn't just about two stars possibly finding happiness together, it was about Jung So-min, her past, and the stories that seemed to follow her like shadows. In an industry where an innocent dinner can be turned into a scandal, every glance, every smile, every unnamed source had painted her into a narrative she never chose for herself. Some tabloids whispered that she had dated many men before him, as though a woman's history should be weaponized against her. Some netizens were cruel, suggesting she wasn't good enough for him. And while he remained quiet, silence over adding fire to the frenzy, he realized that his quietness had not been protection, it had been suffocating. She was blamed for things she never did, accused of feelings she never felt, and forced to live under a microscope that magnified her every step. Jung Hae confessed, his voice breaking slightly, though he fought hard not to show it. Staying silent would shield her. But silence sometimes wounds more than words. In that instant, fans saw not just the actor who charmed millions with his roles, but a man weighed down by regret. His eyes betrayed long nights of worry. Posture carried the fatigue of years spent balancing love and reputation. He admitted that his career had taught him to endure rumors. But love was different. Love meant he couldn't just shrug off lies when they weren't about him alone. Every rumor about her had pierced him like glass. He remembered the night she broke down after scrolling through headlines filled with accusations. She had been brave in front of the world, smiling on stage, laughing in interviews. But behind closed doors, laughter cracked like porcelain. One night she asked him in a trembling voice, "Do you ever regret this? Do you regret me?" He could still hear the echo of that question, the weight of it pressing against his chest like an unmovable stone. "No rumor, no past, no story told by strangers could ever erase what I feel for her," he told the audience. "Watching her cry because of me, that was the hardest thing I have ever endured." It wasn't just her pain he carried, it was the backlash from his own side as well. Agencies warned him to tread carefully. Fans might abandon him, that his image as a romantic lead would be tainted by scandal. Fans asked why he didn't step away from a love so complicated. But love, he realized, was not meant to be convenient. It was not meant to fit neatly into the boxes of career strategies and media expectations. It was messy, fragile, yet more powerful than every carefully crafted role he had ever played. He shared an intimate memory that silenced even the most cynical journalist in the room. A night when the rain had soaked the streets of Seoul. They had walked together in disguise, hoodies pulled low, masks covering half their faces. The world did not see them. Once they were just two souls sharing an umbrella, laughing at how the downpour forced them to huddle closer. "Tonight," he said softly, "I realized that even in the storm, even when no one knew who we were, being with her was enough." Yet even that memory carried shadows. Because while he cherished the small moments of happiness, she bore the scars of public suspicion. Online threads dissected her past, questioning her sincerity. Some accused her of using him. Others mocked her for supposed relationships that may or may not have even existed. And every time he wanted to speak up, he was told not to, that silence would make the storm pass faster. But the storm never passed. It lingered. Every red carpet appearance. Every interview where his eyes darted away from questions. Photo where they were never allowed to stand too close. Press hall, he finally let the truth spill. Filled with both love and sorrow. She is not the person the world tried to paint. She is not the sum of rumors or shadows from her past. She is strong, she is kind. She has given more of herself than anyone will ever know. Fans felt tears sting their eyes because his words weren't polished PR statements. They were raw. Filled with the fragility of a man who had carried guilt for too long. The pain in his voice was palpable, pain for the woman he loved. For the misunderstandings that defined her. Moments he had stayed quiet when his heart screamed to defend her. And yet, even as his confession brought the room to silence, there was an undercurrent of hope. His words weren't just a defense, they were a declaration. He promised that he would no longer allow silence to be mistaken for absence. That he would no longer watch her bear the weight of the world without his voice beside hers. The confession deepened as he addressed her past more directly, daring to say the words no one thought he would. Yes, she has lived. Yes, she has known people, trusted people, maybe even loved before me. But that doesn't make her unworthy, it makes her human. It makes her real. And to me, it makes her more extraordinary. Because despite everything, she chose to share her heart with me. All was silent except for the sound of sniffles as fans wiped tears from their eyes. His declaration broke through the judgment that had shadowed her for years. He was not excusing her. Because there was nothing to excuse. He was embracing her fully. Rewriting the narrative that had caged her in rumor and suspicion. He went on to describe the true Jung Hae. And he saw when the cameras weren't rolling. The one who would stay behind after shoots to thank every staff member. Who would laugh so hard at silly jokes that her shoulders shook. Who would sit quietly with a book when the world felt too loud. He spoke of her strength. How she endured criticism with grace. How she carried burdens that should never have been hers. And yet still found ways to give warmth to others. Hides her struggles. He admitted, but I see them. I see the weight she carries. And I know it is heavier because of me. It is why I speak now. Because if I cannot be her shield, at least I can be her voice. Fans began to cry openly. Not just because of what he said but because of how he said it, with trembling sincerity. With a heart that refused to hide anymore. Reporters who had come expecting a headline about scandal instead found themselves chronicling a love story forged in pain but shining with resilience. He described the nights when he wanted to give up. When he thought walking away might free her from the cruelty of rumors. But every time he looked at her, he knew leaving was not love, it was surrender. And love, for him, was standing in the fire together. No matter how much it burned. As his words filled the auditorium, fans began chanting her name. Some shouting encouragement through tears. The moment became bigger than a press event, it became a rewriting of history. A reclaiming of dignity for a woman who had been defined by whispers rather than truths. And then, his final declaration came. King the hall with its rawness, no matter what the world says. No matter what headlines are written tomorrow. The one I choose. She has always been the one I choose. The press hall erupted in sobs, applause, and shouts of support. The cameras flashed wildly, capturing a man stripped of all pretense, standing vulnerable and unguarded in front of the world. He wasn't Jung Hae the actor in that moment. He was Jung Hae the man, someone who had loved, who had failed to protect, and who now stood determined to never let silence betray his heart again. By the time he stepped down from the stage, the atmosphere had shifted completely. It was no longer about rumors or scandals, but about love, love that had endured storms, misunderstandings, and relentless scrutiny. Fans left with tear-stained cheeks, whispering that they had witnessed not just a confession, but a transformation. Jung Hae had finally spoken, and in doing so, he had not only defended Jung So-min, but also given the world a glimpse of what love looks like when it refuses to bow to fear. The love story that once seemed buried beneath suspicion now stood in the open, fragile yet unbreakable. That fragile truth. Fans found themselves deeply moved. They cried because they saw not perfection, But humanity, two souls daring to choose each other despite everything. The truth was no longer hidden. Though tomorrow's headlines would surely buzz with analysis and speculation, nothing could erase the moment when he looked into the cameras, the eyes of fans, and said without hesitation, "She is my choice. And I will not let her stand alone again."